Sheena Ringo's Messiah Moratorium. We are continuing our track by track listen through to this album, and we've now got on to Sumiki Asobi, which is Playing with Blocks. I'm kind of interested to see where we go with this. I mean, so far this was an album that has, well, I think kind of as the reputation suggested, it's been an album full of ideas and full of also that kind of fresh urgency that you expect from someone very early in their career. Obviously, also, as we now know in retrospect, all of the talent and songwriting creativity that we expect from Sheena Ringo is alive in a very kind of early, young, and again urgent, energetic form on this album. I think when I first started listening to the first three songs, I was starting to build up a feeling that maybe it was almost like a concept album painting a picture, but now I'm just starting to think over the last few songs it's just kind of scattering all kinds of crazy ideas out there. But if you put all of the themes and things on this album together, you know, you do definitely get a real sense of what her mindset is. You know, everything from the playfully joyous all the way through to the absolutely insane. I really feel like this is an album that's giving you all the different sides of her mindset. And so, you know, whenever I think of the subsequent albums that we will check out, I do think that this probably the greatest thing that I'm really enjoying about this so far, as well as obviously all of the songwriting, is just the fact that I feel like she's really painted a picture, captured a time capsule of a certain mindset. So anyway, this brings us on to the next song. I have no idea what to expect from this. Playing with Blocks, Sumiki Asobi. Let's give it a little listen, because then the next track after this has got a music video. So it's going to be an interesting one. But let's listen to this. I'm looking forward to seeing what we get from this one. And yeah, the volume is turned up. Let's go. I was going to say it's a very punky bass, and then the guitar comes in. Yeah, very raw, very punky. I like the way that bursted out in the stereo. I was going to say, this had a bit of like an old school 70s like crime drama feel to it, and then that brass comes in. Really nails it. Need the cowbell. That's interesting. Everything's gone. We've gone from the 70s to the 80s in a southern genre. It's interesting, the song's got a very clear core, and yet it keeps on playing these extra ideas in there. It's just kind of like this constant playful march, but with these little diversions. I'm loving the chord in there. Back to the fade out again. All right, usual thing, let's pause it before the next track comes on. But wow, that was actually really quite an interesting. Yeah, such an interesting song, this one, because the whole idea of the song is really, really nice and tight and very clear. You kind of know what you're getting into, and the song builds up its whole sense of atmosphere and its ethos really quickly. And I love those sorts of songs where you just kind of know the feeling. You know, it's not just kind of notes playing at you. You really kind of get the feeling, the atmosphere it's going for. And as I mentioned, this song kind of kicked off and immediately just from the way that the beat was kind of stomping and like the guitar line and everything. I thought this has kind of got that. I don't know. In my head, I was just thinking like of a 70s. I guess you'd say a blues rock, but I'm kind of thinking of like those old stereotypical 70s crime dramas, like you're going to get a police chase or something going on. It's kind of got that kind of feel to it. And then just slowly all the layers that hit that stereotype built up. We had kind of a low brass, the bam, 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 bam. You had like the cowbell sound was kind of landing on the snare as well that I could hear in there. And it was just kind of maintaining that feeling really very consistently to the point where it was quite obvious what the mood of the song was. But what was interesting for me as well is that the song also took a little bit of a deviation when it had that slight sidestep into, I said it was kind of an 80s-esque part, but it was where the sound that had up until that point been rather distorted and actually quite mono for the best part. You know, it was clearly had an old school lo-fi, very underproduced feeling. Almost deliberately sounding old-fashioned, as I say, with the lack of stereo pan for the guitar and the vocals. Suddenly, when it gets to this little, I'm going to call it the 80s bit, everything just burst out a little bit more. It had a little bit more presence, and then you had the little koto coming in there. These tiny, small aspects being added that built up the sound and gave it just a little bit of a pretty spaced out flourish, and that in a way just gave you a bit of a wind back on the spring so it could punch back into doing its main thing, which was this kind of head bobbing, foot stomping, mid-tempo kind of jab. I mean, tonally, this is basically a song that I think fits into that category I would describe as perfect for an album track. You know, it definitely has enough identity to separate itself from everything we've heard before, so it justifies its place on the album. But it's not kind of doing anything where you'd say, oh, that's a really standout moment. It's not the most experimental, it's not the most catchy, it's not the most effective in any one way. It just overall works in its own little concept. And that's kind of what you want from an album track. You want an album track to be playing with some sort of concept, playing with some sort of idea, doing something which is different from songs you might hear in singles and elsewhere, but maybe is not the song that you're going to remember as being the top thing from this artist in any particular way. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this just as that kind of thing. The fade out again, I know people are like, oh, I don't mind fade outs. Well, look, I do mind fade outs. Never liked them. Very few cases I can think of any fade out ever actually being the best choice. In this particular case, again, the song has a slightly old school style, which I suspect it kind of invites the fade out more, but I wasn't a big fan of that. But this is me nitpicking over something that isn't super relevant. Overall, the song worked. It was a song that didn't feel like it necessarily was going in one place so much as it was just kind of this litany of slightly frustrated, paranoid lyrics mixed with a song that kind of marched along, and a vocal style which, again, I feel this is something that Sheena Ringo's doing a lot on this album, with some exceptions, Kofo Kron, is in general she's singing in a fairly restrained, laid-back way, and there's this almost jazz-like quality of talking in a smooth way about how frustrated and fed up I am with things, and oh, isn't it so annoying that just happened, and aren't you annoying me right now? And so there's something quite playfully likable about that, because it's this chilled, nonchalant way of saying, I'm kind of angry. So for me, I felt like there was a cool, fun concept to this song. Again, it's not like the standout moment of the album, but it's something that gives an album more presence, gives an album more variation. And I think, yeah, I'm glad this is on here. It's the sort of song where, I guess really the best way of summing that up is, would I seek it out to listen on its own? No. Do I enjoy it as part of the album, and does it elevate the album by giving it more contrast? Yes. So that's probably the easiest way of saying it. This was definitely a good, fun song, but I suspect the fact that it was one of the more conceptually simple songs is probably why it is directly ahead of a single, the next song we're going to check out. It's got a music video. It's going to be interesting to see what this one is. I'm still got to say, so far I've been very intrigued by her early singles. They've mostly been great. So we'll find out. But anyway, there you go. That's something that we'll be coming back round to in the next video. I enjoyed this one. Tsumiki Asobi was a good song, but as I say, definitely an album track, and primarily just nice for adding another sound to the cornucopia of creative choices and creative moments that Sheena Ringo has created on this album. Certainly, this is already shaping up to, or shaped up to be, an album that I would hold in very high regard for coming back to and listening to again, cover to cover. And I say that having not even completed it yet. It reminds me a lot, as again I've said in the past, of some of my favourite albums from other artists, especially early career albums. And I think if I'd heard this in 1999, which ironically, I still find it amazing that I didn't hear this in 1999, because I was like really discovering Japanese music so much in 1999. But if I'd heard it back then, I think I would have adored this album. I already get that vibe. I would have been listening to this album a lot. This would have been one that would have stuck with me for sure. But yeah, anyway, let's find out if you always know an album's good when even the filler tracks are great as well. Anyway, we'll get on to the next one in the next video. But until then, get in the comments, tell me what you think. Remember all the liking and subscribing and YouTubery stuff. Do what you want. You know where the buttons are. And until I hopefully don't press dislike though. Maybe you will. And until I hopefully see you very soon for the next one of these. For now. Ciao, ciao.